Welcome back to Tipperary Sports Page. I'm here with Aidan, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Aidan Raftery. I'm a sports physio and here in Roscommon, and I'm also a sports presenter on Ross FM. And I'm with Ballinagar Manor here in Roscommon. They play in the Roscommon District League, so it's good to be here as always. And thanks very much for asking me on.
Um, what did you think of Roscommon so far this year?
Yeah, I've been very impressed with them so far. I mean, obviously they had those three games, against Monaghan, against Mayo, and against Kerry. But they'd a good start in the first two or three games there. Against Tyrone and that, and they played very well. I was at the Mayo game in the Hyde, the one they lost. The three games really. The Monaghan game, they came back in the second half. But I thought the Mayo game and the Kerry game were very similar in that they gave away a 6 point lead before they scored, and I think I said, come the championship, if they're to do well in the championship, that's kind of one of the things really. Because in the championship you can't afford to give away that sort of a lead, but I mean that they had a bad start in both of those games, but they came back well then in the second half, towards the end of the game, which I was very impressed with. And maybe in the Mayo game, if we had another 5 or 10 minutes, it could have been a win or a draw. And similarly, I suppose in the Kerry game, if there was a penalty there near the end, which I felt was genuinely a penalty, that could have been a draw, so it would have only been one defeat.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, the mental strength to not to come back when it looked like they were dead and gone, and to only lose by 3 points. Obviously, it would have been brilliant if they didn't lose at all. But one heck of a comeback. I said this is a battle hardened, or a mentally strong team, even though they lost.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had a good league campaign. I think the part one of the season, the first target would have been retaining Division One status, which they did. And then the second, going into the championship, then this clash with Mayo was in everyone's calendar and hoping to win. That was the only real thing, though. The 6 point lead they needed to tidy up. Their transition from defense to attack was very good. I think Conor Carroll has become a very good goalkeeper. Nearly caught out in the against Mayo in the kind of championship, but
Mm.
he's adapted the modern goalkeeper role. Speaking as a former goalkeeper myself, but he's a good keeper, and he very rarely gets caught out. He kind of gets back on time. The two Murtas, and of course Dara Craig. He was injured for the Mayo game. We've a serious Brian Stack is a good captain. Connor Daly fullback. We've a good bunch of lads, and obviously down in Castlebar, it wasn't a great day for a
No,
game of
I wasn't.
but I felt like if we could get a good start and not
Yeah.
give not let Mayo out of the traps, which they did. They won the throw in, then they won the first free, then they scored a penalty, and
Mm.
then the two Smiths scored a goal. So Enda scored the penalty, and only scored a great goal, and that was a lead they never relinquished. Loud, right? Mayo got within a point of them kind of in the second half, but Roscommon pulled away. And like when you compare that to the last year, they weren't able to close out again. This year,
Yeah.
they're actually, when they're in the lead, they're able to see out the game. Which, as I suppose, an example of that would have been last year against Clare in the championship.
Yeah.
And they had a 4 or 5 point lead going into the last 5 to 10 minutes, and they kind of gave away some dodgy frees, which kind of threw it away. But this is a much better Roscommon team. It was a great win for Roscommon in down in Castlebar, and of course that leads us to the game this weekend, which is against Galway and Dr. Hyde Park.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Look, Galway are a good side. They've had both them and Mayo have played in the lens in the league final, and like with that in mind, I suppose from a Mayo point of view, my kind of question is, with in mind that they were playing us a week later, was it Roscommon or ourselves? Was it ourselves or Mayo that had the advantage? Like we had a weekend off that Mayo didn't, but they had the benefit of playing in a final in Croke Park. But they won that, and could they come down on time? And you see, with that match, with that final in mind, there'll be a few tired bodies after it. So are you better off having that extra game or having the weekend off? Which it just showed like that weekend off proved good for Roscommon, and Roscommon were really determined and did put the Mayo to bed, but Mayo came back in our game, but we were able to see them out. But this is I've spoken to Seamus Duke. I do a show on Ross FM, and I was kind of saying about about Galway, and he was saying, well, look, it's pound for pound, really. Galway seem to have better forwards, even though Mayo have the likes of Killian O'Connor and that, and some other James Carr and players like that. They have Damien Comer, they have Walsh, Shane Walsh. They have some very good forwards, and I think that's going to be a key again. Having a better start is key, because this is a very good Galway team, and I think who we get to mark them. Those two players will be key to that. I'd say Connor Daley will probably take up Damien Comer. No, Shane Walsh, I'd say, and it's going to be interesting to see who takes on Damien Comer, but it's going to be a tough game in the high of the game. I'm going to myself. Hopefully it'll be a good day. But I suppose the statistic that a lot of people would have said was Roscommon haven't beaten Galway in Dr. Hyde Park since 1990, so they'll be looking to put that to bed. But this is a very good Roscommon team, mentally stronger, I think, than maybe the previous years. But they've a good manager, and they're playing well under the new style that he has adapted.
What's your top three J teams so far this year? Who impressed you?
Well, Roscommon, obviously. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Roscommon man. I suppose, well, from last year, kind of this year, in the league, I'd have to say Mayo. Mayo were very good in the league, and who is that? I suppose, if you're to look at last Sunday, I would have to say, Tyrone were kind of unlucky, but I was very impressed. I was very impressed with Monaghan and their comeback to win that game. So I'd have to say maybe Monaghan for the great comeback, because Tyrone looked like they had it won, but like I said, Monaghan came back well in the second half, and took their scores and won the game quite deservedly. So they'd be my top three.
What did you think of New York's win against Leitrim?
Yeah, I think it's good for football, really. In Ireland, they I suppose it's not. A lot of people are saying it's a huge surprise, but I mean, when you think about the amount of former county footballers from over here that have emigrated, some Galway lads, some Mayo, some Sligo lads, some very good players. But even before that, and see, I think that people might realize, but in New York, you could be miles and miles away from training, and that's a huge commitment. But also, from one end of the year to the other, there's no matches. There's no other teams to play unless it's the county team versus a club team or something like that, which doesn't have that competitive edge that there is in a championship game, like we say. In a hurling context, between, we say, Tipperary and Limerick, or Tipperary Kilkenny or something like that. So, but you have seen it. I mean, last year against Sligo, you could see it. That New York were very unlucky not to beat Sligo last year. But I think this year, though, it's a much improved Sligo team. Obviously, the under-20s from last year, a lot of those will be kind of on the senior panel this year. And of course, the winning minor team from 2 years ago, they'd have gone up to under-20. So they're going to be quite. I'd imagine the under-20s and the seniors are going to be quite good this year. It's going to be an interesting clash. I'd say Sligo to come out on that. It could be, it's going to be two interesting Connacht semi-finals.
Yeah. Um, what did you think of the Dublin footballers so far this year?
Yeah, look, I suppose really, you could say, they were too good for Division Two, and they proved
Mm.
that. I thought their only real clash of any sorts was against Cork. I thought Cork have a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
game in the National League, but all look, and I mean in Kildare against Kildare, sure,
yeah,
that was a non-contest. So I expected them to come out of Division Two, which they have done and done well. I suppose they did that. They played Derry in the final in the
yeah,
National Football League Division Two final. Look, Derry gave them a game up until Conor Glass, who has been very impressive for Derry
yeah,
this season. I think once he went off injured, I think the dam opened,
yeah,
and they just sailed from there, and they won as well. Yeah, so I'd say look in Leinster, there's no one really
yeah,
uh, in Leinster to stop them. I suppose Kildare would be the only ones that would be kind of anywhere near them. But as you've seen in the league final, not really, or the league
yeah,
semi final, I should say. So I'd say they'll probably win Leinster. I'd say they'll probably get to maybe the semi final or
yeah,
something. It's going to be very interesting then when it gets to the semi final or the final,
yeah,
uh, how it goes. But I think it's going to be a very competitive championship. It's a championship, that
yeah.
it's but I suppose the new thing about the championship this year is
Yeah.
the
Group
new
stages.
league format,
Yeah,
where all the four provincial finals will be played, and then there's like a Champions League format where there's
yeah,
going to be groups. So and then there's a whole load of scenarios then around who could lose out and end up going into the
yeah,
top cup.
yeah,
So it's going to be interesting, but I suppose whoever wins their championship, gets to the semi final or the final of the provincial championships gets seeded. Obviously, Roscommon
yeah,
now are seeded because they bet Mayo. So, but
yeah,
it's going to be good to see how that goes. It's going to be an interesting championship, and it's going to be a learning curve this season with the championship because of that.
yeah. What did you think of the All Ireland Cup final there last year or this
Yeah,
year?
it was a good final, I suppose.
Yeah,
Controversial. It
yeah,
was kind of controversial over the whole substitution thing.
yeah,
Look, I think you could blame. A lot of people are inclined to blame. Oh, the managers knew what they were doing, and
yeah,
they were trying to pass. But at the end of the day, it's the referees and the linesmen, or the fourth fish, whatever it is.
yeah,
They're the ones in charge, so they should have ensured. Like, I mean, it doesn't really happen in soccer. The
yeah,
player, the substitute has to stay on until the other player that's coming off is off the field.
yeah,
But look, I think it nearly happened. I think was it in the Limerick match? I think during the league as well, or during a football league match where it nearly happened again.
yeah,
Sliced and he came off again. But I thought it was a very good final.
yeah,
I suppose a very close game, which we expected. Obviously, Kilmacud Crokes had a number of very quality players. I suppose the main man really for them, even though the Glen had have some very good players,
yeah,
the standout player for them has to be Conor Glass.
yeah,
But look, they were unlucky to lose out. Obviously, I played for Kilmacud Crokes as well in hurling and football at junior level.
yeah,
They're a good side, they've good structure, good back and good sponsors and things like that, and top the quality is top coaching in the club. So I suppose that's a culmination of all that. They have some serious talent, and now that they have Shane Walsh as well,
yeah,
and I think that the his home club weren't too happy to see him leaving, but he's obviously based and studying and
yeah,
working in Dublin, so it's a lot to have to travel up and down from Dublin to Galway for training and then back up. So I think he had to make a decision that's right
yeah,
for him, and
yeah,
he has to think of himself because his club. It's lovely to pay for your club, but your club don't pay the mortgage or the bill.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So what's your top three hurling Munster top three Munster teams to get out of the hurling this year?
I'd have to say now, you'd have to put it would be very close
Yeah,
Between Limerick and Tipperary, so they'd be two, and the third one, I'm not. Gee, I'm not convinced. I'm not too sure about Waterford. Uh,
yeah,
um, I have a sneaking feeling for Cork this year. What do you think?
yeah. I think the top two would be Limerick. I'm going to say Cork. I'm going to say Tip to get out of it.
Yeah, because I suppose really for why I have a strong feeling for Tip, and it's not just because you're from Tipper. I have
Yeah,
a friend from
yeah,
Tipperary, but earlier on back in the league there, I was down at training, watching the Tip trainers
yeah,
hurling. I met a few of the players, and I met Liam Cahill, and I was very impressed with the how the training goes and the way
yeah,
training is structured as well. But what impressed me as well is that they went most, with the exception of the All Ireland of the league semi final,
yeah,
when you consider that from the more or less the start, the first or second game,
yeah,
they had Cahill Barrett who's out with a shoulder injury. I
yeah,
think they had three lads, and then that built up over a couple of
yeah,
games where they had some more. So I think they had nearly, was it up to eight injuries?
yeah, yeah,
But yes, they remain going through the whole league,
yeah,
as I said, with the exception of the semi final with eight injuries, and yet won all their games. So
yeah,
that was a very impressive for me, and they were very convincing. I thought they were very unlucky against Limerick. A lot of people had Limerick tipped anyway,
yeah,
but they were leading in that semi final. Were just kind of unlucky, maybe as the game went on towards
yeah,
the end of the second half, maybe they just let it get away from them. Maybe a few frees there,
yeah,
maybe frees that were kind of, a lot of people would say were the ref gave, that were kind of dodgy frees that shouldn't have been given. But that's why I think that's why I quite fancy this Tipperary thing.
What did you think of Lee Chin getting arrested abused?
I think it's wrong. I think look, it's modern day. That's Ireland is a multicultural country now. I think, like you've seen us, there's a player in Westmeath. He's playing well for Westmeath, and of
Yeah,
course there's a lad playing for Kerry. And they're quite good players. Like,
yeah,
they're why shouldn't they play? I mean, they're if they're good players, they're putting in the same effort as their teammates. And I mean, Lee Chin, when you look at all he has done for Wexford,
yeah,
started playing for them, he's a serious talent. And I think, look, that's just pure ignorance by that guy
yeah,
did that to him. I mean, you give up all your life to play for your county, and you get that sort of abuse. That's not on. And like, I know a few people were saying, oh well, sure, like, how do you expect to implement, this guy not getting yeah, the guy not getting, banned for life. But
yeah,
why not? I mean, look, if that happened in life,
yeah,
you get arrested for it, or you could get jail, so I
yeah,
mean, why not a GA player? A GA player has a right to go out and represent his county, or the county of where he lives, the same as anyone
yeah,
else, regardless of where
yeah,
he's from. I mean, he's not doing anything wrong. He's just playing a game of hurling and doing what he loves. He's not he's not abusing anyone. He's just playing a game he loves. So
yeah,
that's I think it's wrong, and I think the GA did right. They have to do something
yeah,
about that. It's not an easy thing to stamp out, but
yeah,
they need to do something, or else it's, if
yeah,
they don't, like, if they didn't do that, it's kind of saying, all right, well, they're just tolerating. But there's kind of a lot of fighting during games now as well. That
yeah, yeah,
kind of happens as well. But look, there's a lot on the line now. I think it's one mistake can cost you. Well, it can cost you in any game,
yeah,
in any area. But I mean, mistakes seem to be more costly nowadays in a match. It can cost you an All Ireland, or it can cost you a Munster title or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So it's there's a lot on the line for players because they give up so much.
yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. That's all my questions answered.
No problem. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.